Buddy, we got some frozen in time Facebook weekly Q&A replays on YouTube, of course, for those of you guys who are catching this there. Much love to you guys as well. And just a quick little announcement. I've got a few of you guys who've reached out to me and told me you're working between 8 and 16 hours a day. And when you get in that situation, it's a challenge hiring people and building your structures and things like that. That's one of the things that we're really, really good at doing in the Wolfpack, our mastermind, and helping you get yourself out of your agency and ultimately deliver a better experience for the client in the process. And so if you're interested in that, reach out to me. I've got a little video for you to check out. It'll probably change your life. So in other words, though, let's get into the weekly Q&A. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Frankie Fihn proudly brings to you our weekly Q&A. It's my wrestling homage, 90s wrestling for those of you guys who don't get the references. So first we've got Alan. Alan says, agency talk. So I would appreciate your advice on this in particular if you have done this before. We have been working in the website and digital marketing space for a while. As a result, I've been able to build some long-term clients over that time, some of which have been clients at some level and degree for over 10 years. The issue that I'm trying to work through is some of our long-time digital marketing clients are grandfathered in to what would be considered now as a ridiculously low rate for the bundle of services: SEO, social media management, Google Ads, ad spend, and management. How do you approach raising your prices to your current rates, and did you end up losing some of them because of it? One in particular has been with us since 2015, gets 3 services, and for what I charge now for SEO alone, the amount they wouldn't pay wouldn't justify covering the cost. The flip side is that they have been a paying client every month for that long. Appreciate your wisdom in advance. Alan, man, you got the old clients who've been paying you forever. That is an amazing thing. This happens, like, I'll tell you, when I first started doing my SEO agency back in 07, I charged $400 a month for SEO. Why? Because that just seemed like a psychologically satisfying number to me, and I realize in hindsight how ridiculously low that is. And when you have clients who stay with you, it's hard to just justify raising the rates. I'll tell you the best way to do that, in my experience, is way number one is to introduce something new that adds on to what they're doing and charge more appropriately for that. So in your case, it might be like reviews or some kind of like email marketing service or some kind of help them follow up with the leads or phone closing service. And then you can make your margins on that. It's the same way that like McDonald's will advertise some like 99-cent special on their billboard, and then when you get in there they say, do you want fries with that? Do you want to supersize your Coke? When they supersize the Coke and charge you 40 cents, there's not 40 cents extra worth of Coke in it, the way supermarkets do loss leaders. So method number one, if you want to get people into a more accurate pricing, you can just offer them this upsell and say, hey, we've been good for a long time, but it's in that time I've raised my prices. The other thing is you can always just like thank you plus tell the truth. So I like to do a really personalized, like, hey, I've appreciated your business so much, blah, 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 and we've grown, and it's been so awesome having you, and I so appreciate your loyalty. I'm just letting you know, in that time, we've raised our prices like 6 different times, and I haven't done that to you already because I've appreciated your business and your loyalty, but it's reached a point now where I'm actually losing money delivering this to you, and so I need to raise it. What do you think? And you'd be amazed. You can just do that over text message or email, and usually they'll be like, yeah, it's cool. A lot of times you think you'll lose them with the price hike, but you really, really won't. Is they'll say, hey, I know I've been getting this cheap for a while. So it's usually not as much of an issue, especially if you lead with a thank you and I appreciate your loyalty. And here's why we've raised our prices. And here's, the extra value that we want to provide to you as well. You'd be amazed. Clients take that pretty well. So don't be afraid of having that conversation. Arthur, is a low search volume keyword an opportunity or a waste of effort? Arthur, okay, I'll tell you, this is not always the case, but one of my first website that I ever ranked was a real estate investment website. It was, selling like courses and trainings. A friend of mine and I like partnered on it. He was the guy who knew all the investing stuff. I was the SEO and web designer and set up the PayPal and the buttons and those kind of things. And I remember we ended up getting ranked. We would bounce between number 1 and number 2 for a keyword real estate investing, and I would get 2,000 to 3,000 visitors a month for that keyword, and we converted almost no one. So believe it or not, we were getting 60 to 100,000 visitors a month and converting very, very little of that to sales. We'd make maybe 1 to 5 sales. One day I ranked for a keyword short sale course, and short sale course had only like 100 to 150 searches a month, but I would make 15 to 20 sales off of that keyword. And in hindsight, part of the secret is that the keyword short sale course had buyer's intent, specifically that word course. You do not search a course unless you're at least considering buying something at that exact moment. So low search volume words can work really well if they're buyer intent keywords. So you want to ask yourself, is this somebody looking to buy something, or is this somebody looking for information? Because if it's a low search result and they're looking for information, I would skip it. But if it's a low search result and they're looking to buy something, then get in front of that by all means, because I've had some really good experience with low volume keywords where people are looking to buy things, and you can make like huge conversions off of little tiny markets like that, and they're often like relatively easy to rank, and the ads aren't super expensive. So that's my 2 cents on that. Is it a buying keyword or not? If it is, go ahead. If it's not, skip it. Kyle, what are the main laws categories for a standard operating procedure, or SOP? For those of you guys who don't know, when you reach a stage in your agency, when you start hitting stage 2 and stage 3, where you have employees and teams, in order to have things done your way, you need to have like documentation of all the steps you do and all your processes. And this allows things to be done your way without you needing to be the one to do it. For this to happen at scale, there are typically, I talk about in the agency, there's 4 tracks, as I call them. 4 areas you've got to systematize your processes. So process number 1 that you have to have in your agency, and it's the one that probably gives people the most trouble, which is you got to have a process to sell and market your service. In other words, a process that consistently recruits people into your agency where they want to buy. The second process that you need is a system of delivery, right? Like if somebody hires you to do SEO, you have to have a way of doing the SEO. If somebody hires you to design a website, you have to have a process for designing a website. If somebody hires you for Facebook ads, you have to have documentation and process for the Facebook ads. Now, the third one is for hiring and training. And the fourth one is if you want retention. People don't always think about this, but it is standard operating procedures for your wow client experience. If you have those 4 things, if you have your sales and marketing documented in processes, if you have your delivery documented in processes, if you have your sales or your hiring and training in process, and you have your wow client experience in processes, you can basically build an agency as big as you want. Now, you may have to figure those things out before you can develop a process and scale them, but that's really all the SOPs you really need to build the kind of agency most of you guys want to build. Like I'd say like 99% of you, it's those 4 things. Barbara says, I just fired my first toxic client after bearing with them for 5 years. What would you do with the campaigns you built for them that perform really well, both Google and Facebook? Just leave it to them? Or, well, firstly, Barbara, when you fire a shitty client, like, woo, I put up with a really shitty client for a lot of years because they just represented a huge amount of my income. They were like 80-90% of my income. Those of you guys have heard of me talk about white labeling. Well, I got into white labeling before I even knew it was a thing. But my white label partner, for lack of a better term, was an asshole and used to just call me and complain about everyone and everything. And it was just unending negativity, and he was always angry. Even though we did a lot of business together, I didn't enjoy that relationship. And I'll tell you, the minute you fire a bad client, there's just a weight that's lifted off you. And actually, it'll show up in the growth of your agency in 3 to 6 months economically, because what ends up happening is you don't realize this, but if clients are miserable, if clients suck the life out of you, if clients suck in your business, how are you going to sell more clients? How are you going to get more people into the business? It's always going to be a drain if you have that one client, because you're going to resist your own growth because you hate working with that client. So you get a big congratulations for me for letting him go. Now, as far as you, it sounds like you have marketing assets in your case where they have other Google and Facebook ads. I see this all the time. It's one of the things we talk a lot about in the mastermind, which is you've created an asset. And so I see this all the time in the form of like somebody they'll run Google AdWords for a plumber, and they'll figure out how to make plumbing phone calls come in. And then they immediately go looking for a dentist or another client. And they don't realize that system you figured out of AdWords and landing page and funnel and call and all of that to produce plumbing phone calls could only be used 3,300 other places around the country. So chances are that asset, somebody else would want that asset as is. So I would turn that into a case study. Even if it's for an unhappy client, you can document and prove your results. So use that, because somebody else would want that exact same system. Like in the plumber example, do you think a plumber wants to build a whole new brand new website and system and SEO, or if there's already a plug and play system working for someone else that they could step into and start getting phone calls, which one do you think they would rather have? Almost always they'd rather have the plug and play system because it works faster, it's more immediate, it more like scratches the itch immediately. And so in your case, use those assets, turn that into a case study and show people you know how to get results. And I would find somebody who's in the same niche as your client and in the same kind of business, but without all the attitude problems. Because usually bad clients, it's not necessarily their business or the processes, anything. They just have shitty attitudes, right? They're ungrateful, they're mean, they blame people. It's usually an attitude thing. So chances are you can find lots of other businesses in that same niche that have all the things you're looking for without the attitude problems. So I feel you, girl. Congratulations on firing your first shitty client. Jess says, how many clients did you get to before outsourcing and hiring? I've done this differently in 3 different agencies, Jess. So the first agency I hired literally when I reached the point where I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do anymore. I was already working like 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I had no more time. I couldn't keep up on the work, and it became really obvious I had to hire somebody. In my kind of personal opinion, that's too late. And I'll tell you why I waited so long in that agency, because I was just a freelancer, and if I paid somebody, that cut into my profit margins, and I wanted to keep all the monies for myself. But in actuality, it actually holds you back from making more money, because you'll spend so much time drowning in delivery that you won't be like actively selling and recruiting clients. And so your agency can only grow so far and so fast. And because you're stuck in the day-to-day, you don't see obvious opportunities and things like that and chances to grow. So I'll tell you, in my this current version of my agency, which will probably change again 5-10 years down the road, but for now, I already have our entire company map. I actually, this time it's bad, but I just have it in my head. But I know all the roles and everything that's needed. And the first thing I do is, as soon as I do something once that I know I'm going to do again, I immediately hire somebody. That means if I just for the sake of easy numbers, if I get a client for $1,000 a month and I am going to pay a VA or virtual assistant $500 a month, that would seem like I'm losing half my profit margin. But what I'm gaining back are time and flexibility to be able to work on $1,000 an hour CEO kind of task. And that's the real benefit. So I would say start hiring the shit you hate doing, or the things that you're not good at, or the things that are taking up all the time, as soon as humanly fucking possible. If you have a clear idea in mind of how big you want to build your agency, hire as fast as you can and get the miserable things off your plate. Shemaya, we kind of answered this a little bit in chat, but I think other people would benefit from the answers. I'm going to go a little deeper on this. Hi, Frankie Fihn. I'm emailing dentists that there's 2 or 3 things wrong with their website that is stopping them from getting veneer patients, but I'm not getting any responses, so I can't send video audit of their website. Do you know what I'm doing wrong, or how I can create more curiosity? So there's a couple of things that are going on here, Shemaya. Number one is that you're going after the dentist niche, and the dentist is just one of the most competitive niches on the planet. They're pitched 100 times a day, all day, every day. So this is not just marketers, by the way. Investment people hit them up. Real estate people hit them up, right? Insurance people hit them up. So they're just getting 100 phone calls to sell them anything and everything all day long. So for the most part, they're trained to ignore that. So job number one is you got to figure out how to stand out. You're probably not even getting past the gatekeeper with most of the messages you're sending. So either that means connect with a dentist for real and have a real conversation, or send them something in the mail, or go meet them in person. But find a way just to zig when everyone else zags and stand out from the noise. Question that helps me, Tim Ferriss made this really clear in Tools of Titans, says, what is the least crowded channel? So if I'm trying to reach a dentist, maybe I want to go to a dentist conference. You don't even have to pay for the conference, by the way. You can go to a dentist conference by just showing up at the bar after the thing is over, and you'd be amazed. A bunch of dentists, you'll shake hands with them and meet them face to face and in person. But you want to think about what's the least crowded channel. The second thing is this is really, really key, and this will benefit all of you guys, is to take your service and position it around a real life problem that your target market experiences all day, every day. So when you think about a dentist and their website, dentists are mostly thinking about teeth and patients and running a practice and hygienists and overhead and things like that, they're not thinking about their website nearly as much as we are. They might think about their website once a week, once a month. Like, it's not a top of mind thing. So when you come to them and say, I noticed something wrong with your website, I'm not saying that's not valuable, and I've done that back in the day, and it definitely works. But the thing about it is they like, they don't really lose any sleep over their website, right? So you have to take your thing and position it around something that is a real life complicated problem. I'll give you a couple examples to make this clear. So in the case of dentists, like a lot of dentists tell me that they have neck and back pain because they're like hunched over somebody's mouth looking at something all day long. And so they also tell me they have crazy high overhead. They also tell me that a lot of patients are ungrateful because, you know, they come in for a checkup. The dentist tells them everything's fine. They're like, well, if you tell me everything's fine, what am I paying you for, right? Like, why am I giving you $150 for you to tell me nothing's wrong? Then there's also like, you know, it's an overly competitive field. They think a lot about the competition. And then there's just the fact that people hate the fucking dentist, right? They come there and they're like, ow, my tooth hurts, right? So those are all kinds of things that a dentist is thinking about day in and day out. So like, it's much better to say, hey, I'd love to bring you just a couple of high value patients so that you don't have to be bent over people's mouths, hurting your neck and back all day long, and get rid of like, you know, hundreds and hundreds of low value patients and replace them with just a few high value like veneers. I figured out a way to do that. Would you be interested in doing that? That, if you stand out from the noise and you reach them through a not crowded channel, will be much more powerful than just saying like, hey, I noticed something wrong with your website. So I'll give you another example. Okay, so like one of the things we've done for a lot of years is Facebook ads. Now lawyers, for example, one of the things a lot of lawyers deal with is what they call roller coaster income. So they're overly dependent on referrals. Most lawyers have between 3 and 6 people who send them referrals. Some months they get 10, 20, 30, 40 referrals and they have a whole bunch of business. Other months, nobody refers them. And so they don't know whether they should be scaling their business or preserving cash flow. They don't know whether they should hire or not hire. The whole thing's stressful because how do you run a business not knowing whether you're going to have 40 clients or 0 that month, right? So it's a very, very tricky thing, and they call it the roller coaster income. So if I just come to them and say, hey, I'm going to teach you how to run Facebook, or I'm going to run Facebook ads for your practice, they do not give a fuck about Facebook ads. But if I say, hey, we've figured out how to eliminate all the roller coaster income by being overly dependent on a few referral partners with this one specific Facebook ad that generates motorcycle cases, come take a look at it, that's going to be more powerful. And so this is really, really key, and it's hard to truly like deeply understand, which is position your thing around a real world problem that your people experience all day, every day, and you'll have so much better success because it's hard to understand. They are buying their way out of a problem more than they are buying their way into your solution. So let me say that again because that's a writer downer. They're buying their way out of their problem more than they're buying their way into your solution. So we mentioned the dentist in your case who has neck and back pain, who has really high overhead, and who has patients who are terrified of him. He's buying his way out of those things more than he's like, I want the website or the SEO and all the benefits of those things. So, right. So like if he can find a way to make his neck and back pain go away, or if he can find a better way to deal with his overhead, or if he can just find a way to have patients who don't hate him and aren't terrified of him, he's going to do it for those reasons a lot more than because your web design thing. So this is my way of saying you have to talk about their real life problems. You do that and you'll crush it. And there's a training, by the way, on the YouTube channel called The Unfair Sales Advantage, and it shows you how to get their exact problems in their exact words, which is just using the magic of listening, because they're already having that conversation on the internet already. But if you do that, what will happen is your stuff will convert so much better, because it's way more powerful to say, hey, we figured out how to eliminate roller coaster income, than it is to say like, hey, we got the greatest Facebook ads, right? Like they don't care about Facebook ads and websites as much as we think. Nikki Two Angels, how do you know if a niche isn't for you? How do you find a niche that you click with? I'll tell you, this is just my personal experience, Nick. I've worked in niches where I had clients that I didn't want to see in real life, right? And that's a sure sign that you're in the wrong niche. If a client came to your dinner table and you'd be like, fuck off, you're not welcome here. The opposite is true. If you're working with the right niche, like I got a couple of lawyers that say, hey, I want to take a trip to Cabo, we should hang out. And my attitude about that is, fuck yeah, dude, I would love to hang out with you. Please keep me posted on dates. So one of the surest ways is like, if there was no money involved, would you enjoy hanging out with them? And this is going to be different for everybody, but I'll tell you one thing that really helps with the niche is to work with people you can have real empathy for. So like Dan Crystal, who's in our group here, we experimented years ago with roofers. He still works with roofers. It just wasn't for me. I call them the redneck niches. Those people are cool. They're nice people. I don't have anything against roofers. But what I found is I'm just not a work with my hands kind of guy, right? So they're all work with your hands. They would sometimes get drunk on a Friday night and not answer their phone on a Saturday morning. Like that's a real thing in that niche. And those were things like, they just weren't things that I necessarily related to, even though I had many drunken years in college. Not saying I never had any of that. But I did always show up for work. And when I dealt with lawyers, what I found is I didn't necessarily magically fall in love with lawyers or anything like that. But one thing that was true of lawyers is they had a bunch of meetings and they had bureaucracy and they didn't feel appreciated by their clients, and they felt like the business they got into was different than they thought it was going to be. They felt like they had a lot of competition. They felt like they had something valuable to offer, and the world didn't understand it. And those are all things I related to. So I find the best markets are markets you can relate to, where you can look at them and see kind of yourself 5 or 10 years ago. Those are usually the people that are easiest to help because you'll have reasons to want to help them. Like one of the reasons I'm so passionate about helping agency owners is because I was broke living on my girlfriend's couch and struggled with this shit for many years. And I think if I could just help one person to not have to go through the shit I went through, that would be worth it for me. That would be cool. That would make my life have meaning. And so usually the best niches are just you 5 to 10 years ago or things that are similar to what you've done. So I used to work in the corporate world. That's why I can relate to lawyers who work in this overly kind of corporate-y setting. So, but if you don't want to hang out with them and you don't relate to them, they're probably not going to be the right niche for you regardless of how much money is in it. Subhashish, how to make personalized lines for cold outreach. It's very, very easy, my friend. We had a little private conversation about this. But here's the deal, right? The simplest way to do this is 2 things. One of this my mentor calls naming their baby. And their baby is not literally their baby, but it is the name of their business, okay? Right? There's a big difference between saying, hey, Frankie, I see you have a business, and hey, Frankie, I see you wrote the book Beyond the Agency Box. Right? Like that's naming my baby. It's my book. It's my thing, right? And we all have a name for our business and our thing, right? Like, so one of the things you can do to make your shit more personalized, name their baby. Say, hey, I saw you run ABC Law Firm in Cincinnati, Ohio, right? That alone will make it stand out more than everybody else. The second thing is to talk about something personal that you noticed they shared on their social media. And this is easy to do on Facebook. You can Google this as well. But to see something they actually talked about specifically that STEM. So I actually just did a deal on cold outreach with a really cool guy that, well, I shouldn't say I've done the deal. We're in the process of doing a deal, setting up something for a really prominent lawyer. And interestingly enough, I didn't plan to sell him anything, but I just reached out and I was like, hey, dude, I saw you run ABC Business and I really loved your post about blank. And then it turned out we had some common ground, but it wasn't a sales pitch. But that really is the formula, is name their baby and talk about something that they talked about. And you can get in with essentially anyone. Where most people go wrong is in cold outreach, who do they talk about? Themselves. What's up, Jerry? Good to see you, brother. Kicking ass with some direct mail in life. And thank you for the suggestion on Guard. I am up on that. And I'm about to start staking it and getting more. Wouldn't happen if you hadn't nudged me a little bit. You weren't the first person to tell me about Guard, but your nudge put me over the top, so appreciate that, my brother. Jeremy says, hey everyone, I officially launched my agency in November of last year. I'm getting to the place where I need to think about outsourcing. I currently do everything except the writing of content, website builds, SEO, PPC management, call tracking, lead gen. This is of course not sustainable. Some of you share what your first hire was, or maybe better, the smartest hire you never knew you needed. Thanks everyone for all the insight. Jeremy, it's actually really not that complicated as much as we think. When you need to hire people, there's really 2 kinds of things you're going to hire people for. And thing number 1 is things that you hate doing. And thing number 2 is things that take up a lot of time but are kind of low value activities that need to be done. So for example, you mentioned setting up call tracking, right? Like that's a lot of effort, and really anybody for $2 an hour can set up the call tracking. And I'm not saying you don't need the call tracking. Clearly you do if you're setting up client campaigns, but is that really So how I look at this is I really just look at everything I'm doing. So the first thing you want to do is just take an inventory of everything that you're doing that's repetitive again and again. And I look at two factors. Do I love doing this? Do I hate doing this? Guard your guard. Yeah, that's right. So if I love doing it, then I'm not in a great urgency to get rid of that task. But if I hate doing it, one of the things I learned that took me a lot of years to realize is there's people who love the work that I hate, or that you hate, or that whatever is not fun in your agency. So you can always have people do the unfun things. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I look at the things that are taking up a lot of my time, and I simply ask myself the question, is this $1,000 an hour CEO work, or is this $10 an hour grunt work? And wherever the answer is $10 an hour grunt work, that should send flashing alarm bells that you need to hire people, because what you want to do is design your agency so that you're only doing things you love and you're mostly focused on a day in $1,000 an hour CEO work. Does that mean you're going to spend every minute of every hour doing $1,000 plus an hour CEO work? Not always. Of course, you're going to have moments of just little kind of trivial, unimportant things. But I look at those two things, and almost always what you'll find is there's an overlap. The low value tasks that are repetitive are often the things you hate doing, and those are the first things to get rid of. So what I do is I just then list out all the steps needed that get done, and I make processes so that somebody else can execute those things on my behalf, and I get somebody in the door. But I'll tell you, I actually look more for getting rid of things I hate than I do for getting rid of time sinks, but usually there's a big overlap. And if you do those things, it's an underrated metric to have an agency that's fun. When you're doing fun work and you're doing high value work and you're doing it for people you love, it's such an underrated thing. It's so easy to grow an agency when you're doing things you love and the tasks are fun. It's so hard to grow an agency when there's a shit ton of grunt work. I've done it. I've built 100-person or 100-client agencies that were pushing a boulder uphill every fucking day. I used to wake up with what I call email inbox PTSD. I'd literally check my email and just dread at all the angry client and shit I was going to have to respond to. You don't want an agency like that. Now I get mostly thank yous and cool messages. You want that kind of agency that's fun. And that's the basic process for hiring, is get rid of the shit you hate doing, get rid of the time consuming stuff. What will be left is fun, high value CEO work, and you'll just build a better agency that way. And another thing, by the way, I just want to add one more thing, Jeremy, that'll help you, is look as well where you can eliminate things. Because a lot of times we try and hire people before we've made the machine efficient, and then you end up having this bloated process, and you just bring a team into your bloated process. Melissa says, question, I've been doing everything myself from websites to SEO, as I haven't had success with freelancers. However, I'm working 16 to 18 hours a day and burning out while finding it hard to grow my business in a niche, pest control. Most of my customers are referrals in my website, SEO. It takes me 30 days to build and optimize a 20-page website, but I haven't found another way to get that ranking as quickly as possible as this painful process. Most websites hit the front page within 90 days, others a couple weeks. The issue is I'm only able to onboard 2 clients a month. I need 5, but I'm at a loss. I'm stuck, just wondering if you've been here and can suggest how to get out of this pit. I've grown 2 successful businesses, but this agency thing has me licked. Oh, Melissa, I feel you. Girl, I feel you. I've definitely been in the working 16 hours a day, trying to bring on more clients, but drowning in delivery at the same time. It's not fun. It's very stressful, and you tend to not have very restful conversations when your head lays down at the pillow, those kind of things. I'll tell you a couple of things that just jump out at me. One of those is, it screams to me what I just mentioned a second ago, that your processes are bloated and overly complex. And I'll tell you the first thing that jumped out at me when you said that is, it takes us 30 days to make a 20-page custom website. My question to you is, why does every new client need a custom website? Why can't you use the template and the framework and the structure that you've already built? Why does you have to reinvent the wheel? I used to think that every client wanted custom solutions. And what ends up happening, within a case of a website, is the biggest thing that keeps a website from getting done quickly, especially custom ones, is what I call client ping pong. So you send a message and you say, take a look at the design mock-up, and then you wait, and they return serve and say, can you change these things? And then you change those things, and you hit the ball back to them and you wait, and it goes back and forth. Actually, can you move this? Can you do that? And it's much more powerful, by the way. Clients don't want custom solutions as much as we think. They actually just want the damn thing to work and produce results. So one of the things that I would suggest doing is saying, hey, we have this 20-page website that's fucking working, and we would like to plug your business into it and get your thing rocking and rolling. And instead of selling them a custom, sell them a customized website. So it's like, obviously we'll update it to your brand colors and your logos and your phone numbers and your mission and your pictures and all those things. But this is the website you're going to get, and we're going to use this website because we know it works. And so that's the first thing, is simplify your processes. The second thing is, what's left, document, document, document. When I say document, what I actually do personally is I fire up Loom, and as I'm doing a task, I explain it to someone else. Now, this is a little weird the first time you do it if you don't have an employee and you're explaining to someone else. But what will happen is you will then be able to hire somebody, and when they say, what do you need me to do, boss? You can send them the video, and the video will explain the task better than you ever could in any sort of written instructions, and it'll get done your way, and they'll be able to follow along and execute on those things. So the other thing is, if you haven't had success hiring with freelancers, there's some suggestions I would have on hiring, but almost always part of the reason why people suck at hiring is because they don't realize that their instructions are unclear, because so much of it is in your head and you can't explain to somebody easily what you need. So what I do is just where those repetitive things you're doing over and over, record yourself doing them, explain out loud why you're doing them, and then bring somebody on and give them the videos to be able to execute. And you'll be amazed that people will turn out to be way better employees than you've imagined. The other thing that jumped out at me, Melissa, is it sounds like your onboarding process has a lot of moving pieces and complex. It's hard to know without looking at it, but I would look there for what are some things that we can simplify or eliminate. So we're moving in our agency to this kind of big, hairy retargeting campaign that helps lawyers convert more of the traffic they've already paid for. And one of the things that we found is, because we're running these retargeting campaigns across like 5-6 different platforms, every platform has their own way of setting up ads. So to get like Facebook, for example, we have to get them to add us to the business manager, to the ad account, to approve the page. That's just Facebook. Then Google has their own process. Then TikTok's got their own thing. And then we have to link together Facebook and Instagram. And then we have to link their YouTube account to their AdWords account. And like all of this is this giant tech quagmire. And so I started asking myself the question, like, how could we eliminate it? We just started using a tool called Leadsy. I know a lot of you guys have known about Leadsy for a while. I'm a little late to the party on that. But Leadsy allows the customers to just go approve, 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 and then they can give access to all these accounts. And instead of having to ask them and send them instructions and tutorials and all those things, now it's a couple of clicks of a button. So now that when we're automating that process, it's like it's a 5-minute thing to onboard a client instead of this 5-hour, hey, let's jump on Zoom, can you add me to this, blah, 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 blah. And there's still sometimes like little tech headaches and things like that happen. The software didn't work as approved or whatever. But I'll tell you, man, it makes a fucking world of difference to have simplified processes before you bring people in. So those are the 3 things that jump out at me. Is you're doing way too much custom shit. Your onboarding is probably bloated. I would look there, and then you probably don't have processes to easily take the work off your plate. But if you document everything and get that, you'll be able to bring in team members, and you'll be able to step back and, like I said earlier, work on $1,000 an hour fun CEO tasks and less on $10 an hour backlink building, setting up accounts, getting access to WordPress, and all those kind of things. So I hope that's helpful to you, Melissa. And just one more time, the announcement at the beginning, that was the last question we got. But for those of you guys who are in a situation where you are drowning in delivery like Melissa, our mastermind is really, really kick-ass for that, is like getting you out of your agency. And like, it takes some work, like, to be honest with you guys, from start to finish, to completely remove yourself from your agency. The first time you do it, it's a 6-month process, but we can help you do it with way less headaches and difficulties. And once that's done, you'll be left with an agency that produces amazing client experiences again and again, and it doesn't require you to constantly be running the machine. If you're interested in that, check that out. And we're also, we share some really cool tips about how to deal with all the inflation that's coming. I hear all these people complaining about gas prices, but the best thing you can do is make more money and have your money multiply so that you just don't feel the inflation like everybody else feels it. And we talk a lot about those things. So if you guys are interested in that, give me a holler. I'll send you a video. That's all I got for you guys in this one. I hope this was helpful for you guys. I love you guys. You guys are so awesome. And happy Monday, and may the force be with you.